So it's been 1 month since I've switched to the iPhone 17 Pro Max. And as someone who's coming from Android for the better part of the last 3 years, I really didn't expect to stay on the iPhone as long as I've had. There's a lot here that I really like with the iPhone 17 Pro Max, things that Apple's done that, in my opinion, have made this phone pretty much perfect for me. I should be clear, I am very deep in the Apple ecosystem. I mean, I use an 11-inch M4 iPad Pro as my daily planner, I use it for content consumption, and it is a big part of how I make these videos. And pretty much since the beginning on this channel, I've used some sort of Mac to edit, since I do actually use Final Cut Pro. So my work laptop is an M4 Pro MacBook Pro that is basically maxed out. Shamelessly, I'm not gonna lie, because of the iPhone, I've also picked up the Apple Watch Ultra 3. It does help me stay on track. I get my important notifications. It helps me tackle my horrible sleep habits. And as someone with ADHD, it's actually been really helpful. So it's no surprise that with all of these devices, the iPhone fits in easily. But for me, what makes the iPhone tick doesn't come down to the ecosystem and how they work together. Now, I want to talk to you about why I decided to switch, the things that I like and dislike, and ultimately whether or not the iPhone is going to be staying in my pocket. Before we go further though, a like and a sub to the channel is always appreciated. I just want to say thank you guys so much for the support. We just passed 70,000 subscribers, which is insane. I'm saving some space on the wall there for the plaque if 100K is a possibility, but if you can help me along the way, I would really appreciate it. Anyways, I make content full time. I feel like this is a pretty important thing to get out right off the bat because my iPhone is also kind of an extension as to how I make my content. I've told you guys about the new selfie camera, the fact that I can record in 16:9 while keeping the phone vertical, and it's a feature that I really like. And of course, with Apple Log 2 and with ProRes RAW, it's something that almost makes the iPhone indistinguishable from a real mirrorless camera. But what I like about this phone isn't related to the cameras. It's actually more so about how much easier it makes my life. Okay, so quick context. So I drive this. It's a 2024 Hyundai Kona N-Line. It's not the fanciest car, but I really like it. One problem though is the app on Android is horrible. This My Hyundai app, like doing literally anything like remote starting the car or having these like presets for preheating and stuff, it just never works. Like, don't even get me started on using this thing as a digital key when it comes to an Android phone. For some reason, this car just doesn't like it at all. The thing is, with the iPhone, all of this stuff just works. And because I actually have the action button on the 17 Pro Max, I don't even need to look for the app. It's super mindless to be able to control my car, and it ultimately just lets me carry around one less thing. Now, all of this honestly is just because most apps are better optimized for the iPhone. iOS has the most market share here in North America, and Apple only puts out a couple of phones per year. So for developers, it's really easy to make things work as intended, and usually there is less issues. Whether it's down to performance with games, which run really well on the A19 Pro, or with some applications like YouTube having the community post feature, which on something like foldables that I really enjoy, sometimes it just doesn't show up. And actually, this is something that really bothered me, but when I took the Pixel 9 Pro Fold to Vegas for CES, oh man, I actually ran into a really big problem where a sponsored short video that I needed to publish on Instagram at that moment wasn't allowing me to upload it because it was past the 1 minute mark. I don't know why it was happening. You're allowed to post reels that are over a minute long, but it took a really long time to resolve, and it was a huge pain when I'm just trying to move around CES show floor. And then when it did upload, all of the privileges that you have as a creator on Instagram, things like being able to allow a brand to share and promote it so they can run it as an ad, weren't showing up. So this whole thing, the whole purpose of me making that video was for a company to run it as an advertisement, and it just didn't work. And then on top of all of that, the iPhone still is the only phone that to this day gives you full native camera performance in these social media applications. And also apps like X, for example, that I use every day just work better on the iPhone. Pictures and videos load up right away. The scrolling is really smooth. And oftentimes on Android, if you actually use X, you know what I'm talking about. But when you make a post, you have like, I think it's 15 or 30 seconds before it actually gets published so you can make an edit to it. On Android, no matter what phone I've used in recent years, if I just close out of the app while it's uploading, the thing just never gets sent. The post never gets uploaded. So a couple hours later, I'll just be scrolling through realizing that what I had meant to say wasn't in my timeline, wasn't in my posts, and I just have to resend it. On iPhone, that's something that also just doesn't happen. Now, these aren't things that make the iPhone better, but it does give you a better experience. And yeah, the problem does come down to app developers at the end of the day, just not prioritizing their Android applications. But for what I do on a daily basis, it is just a much better experience for me. Now, some of you might have also noticed that I use the iPhone caseless. And there's actually something that I wanted to touch on with that. So this is the first phone that I've used without a screen protector and without a case. And some of that comes down to how the phone feels. And a lot of it really is just because I've been running a little bit of an experiment. You see, there's this whole thing called Scratchgate, and it is a very real thing, mind you, but it's because Apple's made the move back to aluminum, which seems like a really poor choice coming from titanium, but they've also upgraded the front glass to ceramic shield too. Now, as far as durability goes, look, I'm not stupid. I'm not putting this phone in my pocket with keys or coins or anything else. But I've had a couple of small drops where it's fallen off of my nightstand or my coffee table, and I mean, the iPhone still looks like it did the day that I opened it up. Aluminum is much softer. It does scratch more easily. But I think the reason mine's held up a little bit better is because I'm using the silver color, so it's just not showing scuffs as easily as something like the orange would. But I actually like the move to titanium. It's allowed them to have a vapor chamber without rendering it completely useless, since the phone can now actually dispel the heat better, and the unibody design feels good in the hand. There's not a single sharp edge on the phone, except for the pretty large camera plateau, but you're not really ever putting your fingers near it. They kind of just rest down here. Personally, I really like the design. The two-tone is cool. It looks way more utilitarian, and even though this is the Pro Max, using it caseless is more comfortable than I actually thought that it would be. Reachability is fine because of the thinner bezels too, and although Apple's one-handed mode isn't the best, it does actually help me reach the things at the top without doing a weird, awkward shift. Now, I'm kind of skipping past something pretty important. I mentioned ceramic shield too, and I also said that I've been using this without a screen protector. Now, by now, any phone that I would have used would have been littered with micro scratches. It doesn't matter if it's a Samsung, if it's a Pixel, or even the iPhone 16 Pro Max. I don't have a single one on this phone. I don't know what kind of magic Apple did, but they've changed the properties of glass or something, because even in Jerry Rig Everything's video where he did the durability test on this, it wasn't scratching like any other phone on the market. I feel like you have to make a really purposeful effort to scratch this thing, and it's been holding up really well. Now, because of that, it does defeat the purpose of me even using a screen protector, because to be honest, it would just be damaged easier. And they also create a weird shift when it comes to me using an ND filter on the camera that messes with the colors in the screen. But most importantly, another reason as to why I don't want to use a screen protector is because Apple finally has an anti-reflective coating. Look, it's not the best, but it is better. And the fact that this is a 3000 nit peak display, I really haven't found it in a situation that's a challenge for this phone. Whether I'm outdoors or I'm surrounded by the lights in the office, there is some reflection, some glare, but it's not insanely distracting, and it definitely isn't a pain point anymore. Now, something that was a pain point though, and it's something that I still have reservations with, is eSIM. So this isn't the first eSIM only iPhone, but it's the first time that Apple in Canada has introduced eSIM as the only option. The biggest hurdle that I faced with this was setup. I've never used my carrier to set up an eSIM. But now that I've converted my physical SIM into an eSIM, it's literally as easy as scanning a QR code from my computer and having it up and running. Now, the thing is, it makes it really annoying if I want to switch my number from an iPhone to an Android phone, which I will have to do and will do a lot for review sake. The reason though I'm not making a huge deal about eSIM is because, one, it is actually better, but two, it's allowed Apple to have more space inside of this phone for a bigger battery. And I'll touch on battery life soon, but spoiler alert, it is actually just insane. So while it has been frustrating to deal with the eSIM, this is a trade-off that I'm willing to make in this case. Now, there's some things that I want to give the iPhone a quick mention that I think it's deserving of, like the speakers. These are quite obviously the best speakers in a phone, at least any phone that I've ever used. There's a lot of detail, it has a great amount of low end, and they're also really loud, which make using this, whether it's just for content or even listening to music in the shower, really nice. I don't find myself ever really needing to or wanting to use a portable speaker. That's just how good they actually are. I'm not saying that the iPhone speakers are better than a Bluetooth speaker. That would be an absurd comment. But to me, the volume and clarity of the 17 Pro Max is actually just fine. I don't feel like I need to go running around the house looking for a speaker and making sure that it's charged just to go hop in the shower for like 10 minutes. And I'm also a big fan of Face ID. I use Face Unlock on any phone that I could have it on, which means on Android, I'm using 2D face scan, which isn't really secure, but with Face ID, it's pretty seamless. Like, it's quick enough to never actually be an issue, and I am just looking at my phone anyways. I'm not big on the ultrasonic fingerprint readers that are in most Android flagships because say I am in the shower listening to music and my screen is a little bit wet, sometimes I just have a hard time actually getting in, and then it's just like a little bit of annoyance that I don't really want to deal with. It's also nice that I could use Face ID for my wallet and for my banking, and it could be done in the dark since it uses dot projection rather than just needing a clear image of your face. This does kind of tie into Dynamic Island, and yes, it's there because of Face ID. And do I think that it's a little too big? Yes. And to be honest, it can creep its way into content. Like, it can be an eyesore if you really let it be. But I also do like it a lot. Like, I think what Apple has done here in the way of live activities is actually really well thought out, and I don't hate this application. I thought something like Face ID would be a pretty big nuisance since I'm just used to hole punch camera cutouts, but the benefit is clearly there. Now, I've also spent a lot of time in previous videos talking about the cameras and the benefits that it gives me as a creator. But even now, like a whole month later, I can't really find an area to fault the camera system. The 48 megapixel cameras across the board are really sharp. I do miss the native 5x telephoto, and I do personally think the crop into 8x with the new 4x telephoto can be a little bit soft, but this is the most versatile camera that I've had in a phone. And like I said, if done right, it can compete with things that are way out of its league, especially in video. However, I did make a pretty big mistake when buying this phone, and funnily enough, I actually thought I was buying my way around this problem with the 512 gigabyte model. But if I want to take advantage of ProRes RAW, I'll need something like this, just an external SSD that I plug into my phone with USB-C. This is because unless you have the 1 or 2 terabyte models, you just can't record internally with ProRes RAW. So this whole setup makes it a little more inconvenient. I'm not just gonna spontaneously have an SSD around everywhere I go. So if I wanna get the best image out of the phone for content, it is a little bit of like a bummer that I'll need to have this on me. So if you are thinking about using it for video, just consider getting yourself the 1 terabyte model just to save yourself this headache. I know it's a little bit more expensive, but trust me, the convenience is way more worth it for this application. And now the battery life. So Apple's using a new 5088 milliamp hour battery in the eSIM model. And in my day-to-day, I do charge in the car since I use wired Apple CarPlay. So as far as battery life goes, I don't have like battery anxiety about whether or not I can finish my day. That being said, I also don't use my phone that much. Like on a pretty heavy day, I'm getting about 4 hours of screen on time because I just don't need to be on my phone, doom scrolling reels every hour of the day. Now with the 17 Pro Max, I can end my day with that usage at around 60 to 70% and not have to worry about charging it the next day. Now I only just got into the habit of charging my phone overnight because I started using the Apple Watch, so I bought one of the convenient 2-in-1 MagSafe chargers that I can have both these devices on. But what I'm trying to say though is that I feel the most comfortable carrying this phone over a lot of phones that I've used recently when it comes to the battery life. Like if I'm traveling or I know that I'm going to be away from a charger for a long time, it's not something that I have to think about, and I really appreciate that I don't need to be conscious of how I'm using my phone while I'm away. So I know I didn't talk about a whole bunch of features and stuff in this video. I've made a couple of videos about this phone already, so I'll link them in the description down below if you do want to hear more and find out what I like about this device. But I think that this is the best iPhone that Apple's ever made from a performance, a utility, and a real user perspective. And to be honest, I feel like it's going to be hard for this phone to be dethroned for me as my daily driver until something comes around and really knocks it down. Maybe that might be the iPhone Fold. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, a like and a sub to the channel goes a really long way. And if you've made it all the way through, consider dropping an Apple emoji down in the comments down below. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out. Oh, the camera's far away this time.